Investors always talk about hitting their 100k mark, but no one ever talks about what it's like hitting the 50k mark. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you the things that I learned when my ISA hit £50,000. When I started out, I wish someone had told me how normal it is for the market to swing. On some days, it's going to be up, and on other days, it's going to be down. And at the start of my journey, I'll be honest with you, I was checking my investment account multiple times a day. I still remember when one of the things I had invested in literally tanked by like 30%, and I was literally so hysterical. I was like, do I sell now? Is it going to get worse tomorrow? And in speaking to other people who have started their investing journey, I realized that that is actually a common thing. However, one of the things that gave me a lot of peace was when you zoom out from the dips, when you zoom out from the times when you think the market is doing badly, you tend to see that the overall trend is the market as a whole is growing. And when you are investing for the long term, it doesn't matter what is happening in the market on a day-to-day basis, because you are in this for the long run. And in the long run, the statistics show that the market grows, and that's all that matters. And it also doesn't matter what the market does on a day-to-day basis, because those dips are not real losses. And that's another key thing. Whenever the market goes down, those losses don't actually become permanent unless you choose to sell. So if the market goes down by 30%, which it did in the case that I was talking about, a couple of weeks later, it actually increased by 20%. However, if I had sold in the mode of panic, I would have actualized the loss of 30% and not gained the advantage of the 20% growth that happens later. So don't allow emotions to guide your decisions, because otherwise you'll sell in moments where you shouldn't sell. This leads nicely to my second point, which is pound cost averaging. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was doing this indirectly. What I did was I had a set amount every single month that I wanted to put aside into my investment account. So I set up a direct debit. What I found was whenever the market prices were high, it meant that I would get less units. However, in the instances where the market dropped, it meant I was able to buy more units within the stock market. So over time, the price that I was buying these units at averaged out, and I was able to see the returns. And it took a lot of pressure off trying to guess when to invest and when not to invest. And it's really common for investors to say that it's actually better to have time in the market than trying to time the market, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And if you are someone who is starting out their investing journey, I would highly recommend setting up a direct debit and just automating the process as much as possible, because it takes away the willpower and it helps you actually do something practical towards achieving whatever your financial goal looks like. The third thing that I learned was fees matter. Even if it's 0.01% or 1% or even 10%, it's really important that you understand what the implications of the management fees are on your investment account. Reason being, in the long term, you could be losing thousands of pounds to management fees for the funds that you've invested in, whereas that money could have been working for you and compounding and making you richer. And the thing is, when you're starting out and you're looking at the fees for a fund as 0.1% or 1%, it doesn't actually sound like a lot of money. However, say you were investing £300 a month for 30 years and the average return was 7%. If you were investing in a fund that had a low management fee or 0.1%, then after 30 years, you would have roughly £340,000. However, if you went for a fund that had a 1% fee, you would have around £270,000. So the difference of 0.9% has actually cost you roughly £70,000, which is a crazy amount of money that you probably wouldn't have guessed just because of how tiny the percentages are. So now, when I invest in funds, I always check the summary data, what the ongoing charges and what the management fees are for the fund I'm going to invest in. And if I think it's too high, then I just won't invest in it unless it's something that I can justify. So now my rule is relatively simple. I tend to invest in funds that are low cost, and that includes your index funds, ETF, and I try to avoid funds that have a high fee, such as mutual funds that are actively managed. 4, you need to diversify very early. A lot of finance gurus will talk about diversification, and diversification, simply put, is spreading yourself across different baskets so that if the market changes, you are protected because you spread your risk across loads of different things. A really common index fund that loads of people talk about is the S&P 500. If you only invest in the S&P 500, you're basically only investing in the US market, and there are so many other different countries that are doing great things and have growing economies. And if anything ever happened to US and that was the only place that you invested in, it could have an adverse effect on your portfolio. So when you are investing, you want to diversify, you want to spread yourself across different things. You want to invest in different sectors, in different countries, in developed markets and emerging markets, and different industries. You don't want to just invest in tech. There's also real estate, there's health. And the same thing applies. If the tech industry isn't doing well, it could be that healthcare starts booming. And we saw this during the pandemic where loads of high-flying industry that were doing well were tanking because of the pandemic, but the healthcare industry, as a result of what happened, was doing well. So in short, I found that in diversifying across different things, even when the market was really tumultuous, I didn't see as crazy losses compared to people who had not diversified their portfolio. The next thing that I wish I knew was the difference between accumulation and distribution funds. Accumulation and distribution funds do different things, and the one that you choose really depends on your end goal. And I think with investing and just financial freedom in general, everyone's end goal is going to look different. For some people, they want to start building a huge retirement pot so that they can retire early. For other people, they just want additional income alongside their 9-to-5 job so they have an additional level of stability. There is no right or wrong answer. It all depends on your circumstances, and that's why knowing that before investing is crucial, because by investing in funds that are accumulated, any gains that you make are reinvested back to buy you more of that fund. Whereas if you have a distributing fund, any gains that you make are paid to you. So if you are someone that wants additional passive income, then you are likely to go for the distribution funds because you want the payments to come back into your account to help pay for other things. One thing to add, if you are someone in their early 20s and 30s who wants to retire early and who is thinking of long-term wealth creation, then investing in an accumulation fund will help you get to your end destination faster, just because of the concept of compounding. And compounding is basically when your money makes money and that money makes money for you. So rather than taking the gains that you make like you would do with a distributing fund, that would be reinvested back, and then any gains from that would be reinvested back again. And you can see how really quickly that can become a snowball effect and grow wealth really quickly. And the last thing that I've learned so far on this journey is market crashes are sales, not emergencies. This year and last year, we saw multiple news headlines that caused the stock market to crash. And this is why working your mindset before you start investing is crucial. In moments where the market crashes, some people panic and they act out of emotion. However, when you have the mindset of a long-term investor who sees money in abundance and not from a place of lack, you realize that when the market crashes, it's actually an opportunity to buy. Think about it. Those businesses in most situations have not changed. It's just the environments around them that have changed. And as a result, you're able to get more shares, in other words, more ownership of that company for a discounted price. So a lot of investors who have a wish list of different investments that they want to buy into actually end up buying a lot more shares of that company when the market crashes, whilst others sell in panic. And the reason why this is important from a long-term wealth perspective is you're able to get a lot more shares. It means that your monthly contributions go the extra mile because the price for each share is cheaper. In the long term, your returns will be higher than someone else's because your pound cost average will be lower depending on how long the market is out for. And once the market does recover, it means that your growth will be a lot more than someone else's. So it's really important to always view the market from the eyes of an investor. Those are the main takeaways from my ISA hitting £50,000. Let me know what your thoughts are, and if you also have any takeaways from hitting any personal milestones within your investing journey. And if you haven't subscribed, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to see my next uploads. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye!